Hi, it's Mark Owen from Moose Marketing and PR, the editor of Punchline magazine, and welcome to Punchline Talks, the business breakfast briefers, where I invite a panel of experts to review the morning's newspapers, talk about what's going on in their own individual businesses and what's going on in their own individual business sectors. Let me introduce you to the panel. We've got Roger White from MD, the CEO and Big Cheese of Severnside Software, John McGinty, the Managing Director of Gloucester City Council, Arron Mitchell, who's the MD or joint MD, is it? Arron from, how do you say the company name?
Resfeber.
Resfeber. And what does that mean, by the way?
So Resfeber is a Swedish word that means the exciting, exhilarating feeling one gets when they are about to embark on a travel experience.
There we go. That's a good plug, isn't it? And then Julie Kent from Pied Piper and lots of different hats. There we go. Thanks ever so much for joining us, guys. I'm just going to quickly flip through the newspapers and see what's going on. I've got the Times. Don't panic, urges number 10 after BT cuts fuel delivery. The Daily Telegraph, alarm as BP begins petrol rationing. The Daily Mail, now we're running on empty. I think there's a theme going on here. The Guardian, warning of fuel shortage amid supply chain crisis. The Sun, here come the red tops. We're running on empty. The Daily Mirror, Switch is completely murdered on her way to the first date. This is that terrible heartbreaking story of the 28-year-old Sabrina Nasser, who's sadly murdered. Then we have the Daily Star, farmers' lucrative £30 an hour jobs. When I grow up, I want to be a cabbage picker. 30 quid an hour, not bad going. Then finally to the Locals, Western Daily Press, former council leader guilty of a string of sexual assaults. That's the front page of the Western Daily. The Citizen newspaper, couples CCTV plea to stop alley trouble. My one thing I'd like to say about all these stories, I think there needs to be some, I don't know, the media's got a big part to play in the way that people are going to react to this fuel crisis. I mean, if you read the story like I've read it, it's actually only in London at the moment. It's not around here, and yet they're going to start, people are going to start panic buying. Anyway, John, let's go straight over to you then, please. So we'll start with, what have you picked out for us?
Well, I mean, I was going to start with that fuel story, actually, Mark, because it is, I mean, it's on the front page of everything, isn't it? And although you say it's only the petrol shortage is only affecting London, you know, the customers of Gloucester City Council and loads of other councils around the country have been suffering from missed waste collections for probably about 2 months now, because of a shortage of lorry drivers. It started off with a pingdemic, where we had, you know, waste crews having to isolate because of contacts. But then obviously this shortage, and we've been losing waste drivers sort of hand over foot. We've increased the pay rates. We hired someone on Friday. He didn't turn up on Monday because he got a better offer over the weekend. It's just it is quite an interesting sort of, you know, it's a real interesting problem that is being created. And there was something in the I newspaper this morning, because there's articles talking about going back to the 70s and the fuel strikes and all that stuff. 70s nostalgia has its limits, is the letter from the editor in the Eye, and it is basically, there is a sort of policy experiment going on here, because one of the ministers is saying we just want to see what the industry can do for themselves, and that's the quote from the minister, Paul Scully, which is an amazing statement, because he's basically talking about the furlough scheme and wondering if the people that are coming off the end of the furlough scheme and not having a job are going to go into the road driving industry. So it is like it's a policy experiment to see if supply and demand is going to make people move from job to job. But it takes months and years to learn to be a lorry driver. You can't, if you're a chef somewhere, you can't suddenly just rock up a lorry, drive a 20-ton lorry, let alone the safety side. I have noticed, and I do want to make a big thing of it, you are right, our green bin hasn't been picked up. Now there's going to be a knock-on cost to that later on, if it carries on and carries on. But I hate to say it, you're going to have thousands of residents saying, hold on a second, I pay X amount of money for my pickup, I want my money back. Yeah, we've had a few asking that already, and you know, what we did last year during the pandemic was there were some cancellations during the pandemic, as we weren't able to send out all the waste crews we wanted. So what we did was we extended everyone's contract for the year by 4 months. So even though they only lost 2 months, maybe they got an extra 2 months last year. So at the moment we're saying, look, you got overcompensated last year, and we can't afford to compensate you this year. But I mean, the longer it goes on, you know, the more worrying it is going to get, and the more impacts we are going to see on our lives. But I suppose sort of thinking longer term, not just about the policy experiment, but it does start to, you know, raise the question about how reliant we are on road freight rather than other forms of transport, doesn't it? You know, and there was an article in, just linking to your great magazine, Mark, there was an article in Punchline this week about an all-electric unmanned lifting craft being piloted by BAE Systems. And I'm just wondering whether, in the same way that the pandemic sort of accelerated our reliance on this sort of technology, whether this driver shortage is going to force companies to look elsewhere for that sort of logistics delivery, and that, you know, the investment in drone technology and things like that is just going to accelerate, I think, because as a country, as a globe, I'm not sure we can continue to have this sort of reliance on road freight.
I totally agree, and the other thing is, it goes to show that this quick delivery system that we've all got to rely on over the years, and getting everything from China and from abroad, the moment something like this happens, everything just stops, and we can't rely. We should manufacture and build more stuff here in the UK and not rely on China so much. Thanks so much, John. I'm going to come back to you obviously later on. Let me go over to Julie now. Julie, what have you picked out in the papers, please?
Well, it is pretty negative, isn't it? And I tried to find some positive things. And what really caught my eye, as I have been to the hygienist this week, is they are going to add fluoride to our water again. Apparently, it's all part of a big plan headed up by Chris Whitty, who's backing it, which is fantastic. Only 10% of the population receive fluoride in the water, and 1 in 4 5-year-olds in England suffer from tooth decay, which costs the NHS an absolute fortune. I can't find the number now because my eyes aren't that good. But 35,000 children are admitted to hospital with tooth decay every year. It's like crazy.
But sure, that's not to do with chloride in the water. That's because
fluoride. Well, they are saying, yeah, they're saying probably not the sweets they're eating, but the fluoride that is in the water, and they reckon it will halve the problem. Oh, here it is. It costs the NHS £54 million. And this is they're also going to add folic acid to bread as well now, so we obviously can't manage our own diets at all. We have to have them do it for us. But it was good to see that Chris Whitty backed it. And he is from Gloucestershire, isn't he, Chris Whitty?
Yeah, I believe so, yeah. Okay, yeah. What else has got you right there?
Pardon?
Have you got another story?
Yeah, I got another story. And the other one is, carrying on for education, only 1 in 10 people have actually written anything in the last 10 days. Everyone does everything on their tablets now. And interestingly, they said that they think it helps to have spell check and all the rest of it. And I would say out of the 100 emails I get a day, at least 10 have got typos in them or grammatical errors in them. And so I don't think it is really helping that they all do it electronically. And how sad that we don't send letters to people anymore, and we don't send cards. Actually, I do, because I've got post box outside my house. But I just thought,
do you write thank you cards? Do you get your kids to write thank you cards? What about you, John? Do you do the same?
Yeah, I it's a bit of a struggle with them, you know, and they're not used to writing as much as we did. But
no.
Yeah, they write postcards from holiday, write thank you cards.
Yeah.
Arron, I don't know if you've got any children, do you, or yourselves, do you write thank you cards handwritten?
I don't have children, no, but yeah, we do send like Christmas cards to our customers each year. So we didn't do it last year because obviously of the pandemic, but it's something that we're in the habit of. And you're right, Julie, yeah, I can't remember the last time I had a written letter. Everything comes by email.
I might drop you a line, mate. I feel sorry for you now. Roger, Roger, do you have kids? I'm not even sure actually. Do you have kids? Do they write thank you notes?
No, I've got a son, my son Lawrence, and he doesn't send me any thank you notes.
There you go. Anyway, right, we better move on from that. Thanks ever so much, Julie. We'll go over to you now, Arron. Arron, what have you picked out for us, please?
So it's all a bit doom and gloom on the news at the moment. But the one thing that we were talking about this morning is the energy crisis with the gas and the energy companies. I think there's been like 7 energy companies that have gone into administration recently. And it's, I obviously understand that it's the government's put a cap on how much they can increase the rates. And those also on fixed term tariffs are also benefiting from this as well. But those that aren't, how are they going to get through the winter with the 250% increase in energy that they're talking about? And I think not everybody knows to maybe renegotiate their contracts each year. So those that are on flexible tariffs are certainly going to be hit quite hard this winter. And I think it would be interesting to see over the next coming days what the government is going to do to try and, you know, save these companies from going into administration, and also then try and bring the cost of the gas down as well.
Well, the big thing there is that prices are going up right across the board, isn't it? It's not just about energy. It is every single sector. And there's a story I've got here, actually, that the bank admits inflation will stick above 4%. Really, really quite frightening. Have you got another story for us that's caught your eye, Arron?
So the other one that just caught my eye is, I'm a big Strictly fan, and it's the 3 dancers that they won't name that refused to get the vaccine. And it's that as an employer, obviously, we don't force our staff to get the vaccine, but we do encourage them, because especially in travel, most countries are now asking that you are vaccinated to be able to get free entry into the country. And surely the BBC should be more encouragement of that, especially since it's not like here where we can socially distance between us and our customers. They're like body contact. So surely they've got a sense of well-being to the celebrities to ensure that the people they're dancing with is vaccinated.
Aren't you saying that it's really sending out the wrong message? That actually it's okay not to be vaccinated?
Yeah. And, you know, and I understand that it's not, people have concerns about getting vaccinated, and people have, you know, it's their decision to make whether or not to be vaccinated or not. But if you're not going to get vaccinated, then you need to be able to protect yourself and protect those that are around you. And I think that's why I think the BBC should have taken a stronger stance on it with those 3.
No, good point, Arron. Well, let's go over to Roger. Hopefully Roger's got some perkier, brighter news. Roger, welcome to Punchline Talks again.
Well, actually, I was going to talk about the inflation and the Bank Policy Committee meeting yesterday to discuss interest rates and obviously relating to the inflation. So I'm not sure that's actually a very cheery story either. And the article that I've focused on is the one in the Times, where they're talking about the monetary policy meeting yesterday. And of course, as we know, there's a lot of pressure on inflation. Inflation is rising. The Bank of England originally said that this would be a temporary thing. We're not expecting it to be a long-term problem, but as we're seeing, everything price-wise is under pressure. The price of fuel is shooting up. It's sort of stabilized a little bit, but it's gone up something like 30 pence a litre since the lows of the pandemic, when we were all at home and nobody was driving anywhere. And it just seems everything is under some sort of price pressure, which inevitably is causing inflation to go up. Obviously, the latest thing is the negative thing about the cost of gas. But of course, this is all price rises. Everything seems to be going up across the board. So the Bank of England, obviously, as far as the Bank of England interest rates go, we've had the lowest interest rates ever on record. As a businessman, clearly we've never ever had rates at this crazy level, and it is a help if you've got commercial borrowings in terms of business, and obviously people at home with mortgages and so on, depending on the deal they're on. It's a massive help to have interest rates so low. But the question is, when are the rates going to start going up? And interest rates are going to start going up. And is the inflation situation more longer term? And I believe it is. I don't profess to be more of an expert than the Bank of England, but it looks like inflation to me is set for a longer term rise, which will lead to interest rates going up. And it all starts to feel like the perfect storm in terms of costs going up for businesses and for consumers.
Thanks, Roger. I totally agree with everything you just said. And if interest rates go up, the knock-on effect to people, you know, who are already at the limit of their mortgages. Also, businesses have never been so highly geared. They've never borrowed so much money to get through the pandemic. And that also leads me back over to John as well. John, the City Council borrowed an awful lot of money to buy King's Walk, Eastgate Shopping Centre, St Oswald's, good investments. Never has money been so cheap. I mean, will it have a massive knock-on effect to the City Council if, you know, that was to happen?
It shouldn't. Well, that particular problem shouldn't do, because we borrowed a fixed rate for about 30 years, 40 years, so a very low fixed rate. So we know, we obviously know what we're going to have to repay for a long period of time. The challenge is whether or not we get the tenancies in the units, and with the changing nature of retail and everything else, to actually cover the payments. But in terms of what we're actually going to pay, we're not affected by that sort of sharp rise in inflation.
Now, you've had one hell of a job over the last couple of years, haven't you, trying to get through the pandemic. How long have you been managing director of Gloucester City Council?
It's come up for 6 years now. I've lost some hair and I've grown a beard, but 6 years.
Right. Okay. And what's it been like for you personally, you know, this last 18 months?
It's been very strange. I mean, we were fortunate in having a very good sort of technology platform. We'd invested in our IT a year before the pandemic. So the March the 20th, whenever it was, I had to stand up on the floor and just tell everyone to go home, take their laptop, and I wasn't sure when I'd see them again. But everyone the very next day just logged on from home, and the council carried on serving customers. It was extraordinary to see how quickly people adapted, and, you know, the way we took on the use of Teams and started experimenting with new technology was great. So from a customer perspective, you know, actually in some respects, customers have been served even better than they had been before in terms of online and telephone rather than face-to-face service. So it's been a challenge. I mean, there's obviously been things coming along on the way, and it's impacted on things like, you know, parking income, leisure centres. We've had to, you know, extend loans to Aspire, who run the GL1 and the Oxtalls leisure centres. So, you know, and we've been obviously dishing out a huge amount of support grants to businesses through the various government schemes that we've been asked to help in. So, you know, teams have stepped up incredibly, and I'm very proud of the council, the way they've responded. Because
a lot of people don't realise there aren't actually that many people working in Gloucester City Council. Not in the great scheme of things. You know, how many people do you have to look after?
We have it's an employment of about 200.
Yeah, and what's your population that, you know, they have to look after, they have to service?
The Gloucester City is 130,000. Yeah.
Okay, and the demands on it must be absolutely, because the thing about, I think sometimes people forget, is for cradle to grave service, and it's everything in between. And that,
I mean, just as an example, just in the last 2 months, we suddenly had to step up from nothing to doing a massive support service for Afghanistan refugees. You know, so in the last 2 weeks, we've accommodated 5 families across the county with, you know, and we've identified another 30 odd properties that we're currently investigating, and working with GARAS, which is the voluntary sector organisation that supports asylum seekers and refugees. And that's, you know, that's an example of where the council suddenly has to go from nothing to a whole new service in a very short space of time.
Well, I just want to say, by the way, thanks ever so much, myself included, by the way, personally, for the way that you guys paid out those grants. It was a life-saving for thousands of businesses throughout the city. I said the same thing for Cheltenham Borough Council as well when I had a chance to talk to Rowena Hay. It has been quite phenomenal. It really has been. So I just want to say thanks ever so much for that, by the way, John. People are very quick to give you guys a kick in. But I think, you know, the business community has got a lot to be grateful for on that front. Might be lots of other things we might not agree on, but on that, I do think you've done a great job. I'm going to go over to Julie now. Julie, Pied Piper, you're sitting there in your new shop, aren't you?
Well, I haven't got there yet. I've got another networking thing to do at 9. Then I dash into the shop to open it.
Oh, right, all that stuff behind you is not for sale then?
No, this is my dining room, actually. So no, it isn't.
I was going to make an offer on the picture.
No, you can't have it. But you can drop some more stuff off if you like. I mean, obviously it's been dreadful for charities generally. And we, you know, I was saying a few months ago, we were 180,000 down. We're probably 200,000 down now. But we did sort of use the time to kind of put all our ducks in order, and next year is our 30th year, which is massive. And Peter Hickman, who is from Gloucester, you know, he is still with us. He started it 30 years ago. He's in his 90s and he's still with us, which is fantastic. So we're, you know, hoping to have big celebrations next year, really. But it's tough. And you know, talking about Gareth, I was talking to Gloucestershire Bundles the other day, which is a lovely little charity in Quedgley, and they also have been getting clothes together for the Afghan children coming over, which is fantastic. So but obviously I've got to put a couple of plugs in, because we've got a couple of fashion shows on, one at Bodega next Wednesday at the Daffodil, which is £25 a ticket, and then we're having one at the Irish Club, and it's going to be all the clothes from our charity shops. And I hadn't been to the Irish Club since someone's 18th birthday hundreds of years ago, and I went to the Irish Club and they've done it up and everything. The McGurks have got involved in, and they're doing a lot there, and it looks fantastic. So we're having a sustainable fashion show at the Irish Club on the 13th of October. But
how do we get
we
tickets
really,
for that?
pardon?
How do we get tickets for that, Julie?
pipepiperappeal.co.uk. But I must also give a shout out to Roger, because he's taken over all our IT in the office, and it's absolutely brilliant. We actually now have a speed. We don't have to sit there for 2 hours waiting for it to come on, because in the hospital it can be a bit. But Roger and his team have been fantastic. So a big shout out to him.
Thanks,
you.
Julie.
Well done, Roger. Anyway, I'm going to go. I'm not going to let you steal the show right now, mate. I'm going to move back over to Arron. Arron, welcome to Gloucester. I know you moved your business from Colford. On my little script I've got for myself, I wrote that down. That's why I got all confused when I was doing my intro to you. But you moved your business from Colford to Gloucester a couple of weeks ago. Has it been a month now or something? You're on College Green. What's it been like, sir?
So we were in Colford for a couple of years. So we closed the store in April when the lease was up. And then we already had our eye on Gloucester. And it's been really interesting, because I know, like John, you said about the concern with the empty units, but we actually really struggled to find a viable unit, considering how many empty units there are around on Eastgate, Westgate, Southgate Street and everything like that. Is how the investors and the landlords were just not willing to enter into any type of negotiation at all about leases. And we were very, very fortunate that the landlords of College Court, where we are now, was just so open to having the conversation, because we had to invest money into getting the store kitted out, and doing all of that. And College Court was the only landlord really that was really interested in having any type of conversations in terms of incentives and, you know, getting us into the property and stuff like that. And they were really, really understanding as well, because we kept delaying taking the lease on, because obviously the lockdown got extended and then the pandemic. So we had to overcome all of that. So that took us from like March to now to get to where we are. But yeah, we've been in here for about 3 weeks now, and people are starting slowly but surely to hear about us. We do have a lot of customers in Gloucester anyway, because they were hearing about us when we were in Colford anyway. It's one of the main reasons we moved over here. But we are certainly starting to see a big uptake in travel again, especially since the government's now eased the testing restrictions to come back into the United Kingdom. The day 2 PCR test will be replaced with a lateral flow test. And the best news ever was that the United States is opening its borders. The United States probably is about 30% of our business. So we were over the moon. We did a little dance in the shop when we heard that the United States was opening the borders. One of the directors was actually crew for Virgin Atlantic as well. So he was over the moon, because it means he's going to be doing increased flights to the United States, which means I get my Reese's Pieces more often.
And also, you've got those fantastic, you've got airline seats in your store there as well.
We have, yeah. So we've got former Titan Airways airline seats in our sort of like seating area where we can sit and talk to customers. We've got a bar, which is where I'm currently sat at the moment. We've got our non-alcoholic spirits here, so we don't get our customers hammered and then get them booking holidays. So it's all non-alcoholic mocktails that we do here. And we've got a big workbench in the centre of the store, so we don't look like a normal travel agency at all.
No, there's a great feel to your place, by the way. When I popped in there, real nice buzz and energy as well, Arron. Thanks ever so much. Really good to see you. Thanks for joining the show, and hopefully we'll get you back again. Don't go anywhere. Roger, right, let's go over to your business. What's it been like for you now recently? We've been talking a few times on the show. Is business still good? Is it still bubbling along? Are people moving back to the office? What's the score?
Yes. Yes. So no, so it's absolutely it's going mad. As discussed many times in the past, for us as an IT company, the pandemic has been a roller coaster, but now we're on the up of the roller coaster because everybody now, it's just so busy, which is really, really positive. We got two sides to the business: the IT support side, which is really busy at the moment, and then the software development side of things, inventing systems for people, apps, and we do a lot of connecting cloud systems together nowadays, and all that has all of a sudden gone completely bonkers, which is fantastic. Obviously, with furlough coming to an end at the end of this month, next week even, the people that I've had on furlough the most have been the software developers. The IT support side was very temporary, as I sort of think you'd probably expect, really, because we found that people didn't want to commit to the bigger sort of projects. But now that's all changed. The software development side is really on the launch pad and is heading up into the sky. So that, it really feels positive. We talked about price rises and everything else and the negative parts of the economy, but from the IT standpoint, everybody now seems to want to get on with bigger projects. And so really positive.
And are people going back to the office, Roger? Is that what you've seen?
Yes.
Everywhere.
I've always believed the office is not dead, and yes, we're seeing people going back to the office. Definitely. There's still a lot of home working, and it's more of a hybrid model at the moment. And obviously during the pandemic, we've had to help people with the technology, as John mentioned, for the council. Some people have invested in IT prior to the pandemic, and then it's easier to work remotely, and then other companies have not, so therefore was more work involved. So, but people seem to be doing a hybrid model on the working.
Okay, thanks ever so much, Roger. All right, unfortunately, we're kind of running out of time. We're coming to the last leg of the show. We go back over to John, please. John, what have you picked out from this week's Punch, please? And I know you've got a funny story for the Nationals as well to tell us.
So on Punchline, I think the story that caught my eye this week was about National Express bidding to take over Stagecoach. Very interested. Stagecoach got a huge presence locally. I've been noticing actually more recently a number of sort of eco-friendly vehicles that Stagecoach have been putting on the roads around Gloucester, and so I'm just very interested to see really whether the takeover goes ahead and what impact it might have locally. Yeah, 600 jobs they employ here. Of course, they've got terrible problems like you have with your bin people. They've got terrible problems with getting coach drivers. They're all being poached all over the place. They do. Yeah, who would have thought? But the story that I picked up from the Nationals, just picking up on Roger's point about people going back to the office, is there's a list of the most annoying habits of co-workers. So number one is people who take credit for someone else's idea. Number two is taking someone else's food from the fridge. Number three is colleagues who are off sick and then seen out socialising. Number four is not using deodorant. And 5 is putting kisses at the ends of emails. I've probably several of these. So you ought to publish this list, Mark, and see how many sins we've committed across Gloucestershire. Fantastic. Julie, what have you picked out for this week's Punch?
Can I just say I put kisses on all my emails? It doesn't matter who they're to. I picked out about the universities, and I loved it on Monday, mainly because my niece has just gone to Bristol. But you did start the article very positively and how great it was. I think just great to be up there at the talk mentioned, I suppose. And the fact that it now costs £9,000 if you're an overseas student, 14,000, and a graduate might then earn 21,000 when they come out. But how much have they wrapped up on the way? 50,000. And then as you go down and you see the rankings, there are 132 in the rankings, and the Royal Ag University is at 116. So I didn't think really that was that good. But I would say to young people, really think about it. Do you want that debt? Apprenticeships are amazing. Companies want to train you how they want you to be, and you can grow. And I'm a big fan. Both my children did apprenticeships.
Me too. But, you know, you are right. It's 132 in the list. And Gloucestershire's were 116, 112, 112 or something like that, which is, anyway.
I think it's a status thing for parents, a lot of it. You know, the parents like to say, my daughter's going to university, but actually, you know, at the end of 3 years, what have they come out with? And as you say, you know, although there's a lot to be said for, do they need to get away from their parents and actually try and live on their own for 3 years? But yeah, big discussion.
I don't know if they do so much, actually. That's the problem. And they definitely don't make as many new friends as they thought. It's not the same experience when you're stuck in a room on your own, you're texting your friends at home or friends in another uni. And we could talk about that for
They still don't write to you when they're stuck in their room at uni.
No,
They still don't send you a letter.
Well, I've sent my niece a card.
Right. Anyway, Arron, what have you picked out for this week's Punch, please?
I actually picked out the images for what Gloucester's old Primark store could become, because obviously we don't want another empty unit in Gloucester. And I think the more vibrant the city looks. So I was quite interested to see the plans that they have for that Primark store. And when I started my business, I actually worked from home for 2 years before I opened my first store. And one of the biggest issues I had was finding small business owners that I could just go and work with. So I think something like that would be great. So I'm excited to see that.
Okay, fantastic. Roger, what have you picked out for this week's Punch?
So Punchline, I thought I'd go for a bit of a lighter story because I was a bit heavy today. So very quickly, there's a chopping board which celebrates 50 years of the Cotswold Way. So a chap called Robert Welsh has come up with this limited edition oak chopping board. And as I was out walking the Cotswold Way last Saturday and my feet are still complaining about it, the story about a chopping board to celebrate it, I thought was actually quite, quite a nice thing to do. So chop, chop.
I think it's only 60 quid or something. The story I picked out for this week is the ones that you said as well, but it was actually for Gloucestershire was the new or extension to the big business park on the M50 and Junction 1, 375,000 square feet of extra capacity. And it goes to show how Gloucestershire as a whole is going to be a mecca for logistics. And
it's fantastic. Gloucestershire is a great place to be in business.
It is, certainly it is. Thanks ever so much for joining Punchline Talks. We've run out of time today. I hope you join us very soon. Thanks, panel. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.